Gentlemen, if you are over 60, I have to give you a warning that may shock you. There is one fruit, a fruit many of you have eaten for years at breakfast believing it was cleansing, healthy, and even protective, that could in fact be quietly making your prostate grow bigger day by day. And when the prostate grows, it doesn't just cause a weak stream or frequent trips to the bathroom. It robs you of restful nights, your confidence, and even your intimacy. The truth is, this one fruit may be doing more damage to your prostate than you ever imagined. My name is Dr. Mohit Khera. I am a urologist, a men's health specialist, and I have spent over 30 years helping men across America protect their prostate, preserve their vitality, and regain their confidence. I have seen thousands of patients who thought they were simply getting older, when in reality, hidden habits in their diet were quietly destroying their prostate health. And here is the paradox. The very fruit that is often promoted as heart-healthy and weight-friendly, the one you might see in commercials or sitting on your breakfast table, may actually be your worst enemy after the age of 60. Something so ordinary, so common, could be fueling the urgency, the sleepless nights, and the frustration you live with. That is why I am here to show you the truth. I will reveal this fruit, explain why it makes your prostate enlarge, and give you practical steps to stop it today. Even more, I will show you the simple switches that can protect your prostate, help you sleep through the night, and restore your confidence. And if you stay with me, you will also discover a daily routine my healthiest patients use to keep their prostate calm, their nights peaceful, and their manhood strong, even into their 70s and 80s. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell, so you never miss important advice that could protect your prostate and your health. And I'd love your feedback. If you find this video helpful, type 1 in the comments. If you don't, type 0 and tell me how I can make these videos even more valuable for you. Now let's begin with the first truth every man over 60 needs to understand. Why the prostate becomes such a powerful force in your life after this age. It may be small in size, but when it starts to grow, it quietly steals your comfort and freedom. 1. Why the prostate matters more. After 60, the silent thief of comfort. When I sit down with men in their 60s, 70s, or even older, I often begin by asking a very simple question. How many times did you get up last night to go to the bathroom? The answer usually isn't 1. More often than not, I hear 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times. And when they tell me this, they usually shrug, as if it's simply part of getting older. But let me tell you from my 30 years of experience in urology, this isn't something you should just accept. It's not simply old age. What you are experiencing is a gland the size of a walnut quietly taking control of your nights, your days, and your comfort. That gland is your prostate. The prostate is small, hidden, almost invisible in the way it works. Yet after 60, it becomes a force that can steal peace from your life without you even realizing how much. You start by waking up once in the middle of the night, then twice, then suddenly you notice your sleep is fractured, your energy is drained, and you don't remember the last time you had a full, uninterrupted night of rest. I have seen strong, healthy men slowly wear down because of this. They look at me in my office, eyes tired, shoulders heavy, and they say, "Doc, I feel like I'm chained to the bathroom," and in many ways, they are right. You see, as men age, the prostate naturally tends to enlarge. We call it benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. But those words, scientific, clinical, don't really capture the daily reality. What it feels like is urgency. It feels like a weak stream. It feels like standing at the toilet for long minutes, waiting, pushing, straining, and still feeling like your bladder isn't empty. It feels like planning your car trips around rest stops, making sure you sit at the aisle seat in a movie theater, or even saying no to social gatherings because you're embarrassed by how often you need to excuse yourself. I remember one of my patients, a man in his late 60s who had been a high school football coach for decades. He told me that the hardest part wasn't the physical discomfort, it was the humiliation. He said, "I used to be the man who never missed a beat on the field. Now I can't sit through my grandson's game without leaving for the restroom twice." His story stayed with me because it wasn't just about urination. It was about dignity, identity, and the slow erosion of the life he wanted to live. And yet, here's the part most men don't realize. Much of this suffering can be influenced by the choices we make every single day. Diet, habits, even one single fruit you might be eating every morning can push this small gland to swell larger and larger. It's not just biology, it's not just age, it's what you're feeding your body. That's why I call the prostate after 60 the silent thief. It doesn't come in with alarms or pain. It slips in quietly, night after night, robbing you of sleep, energy, and confidence, until one day you wake up and wonder how you lost so much control. The good news is, you do have control. But first, you need to recognize that the enemy isn't always what you expect. Sometimes it's not the heavy foods or the obvious culprits. Sometimes it's the very thing you thought was good for you, the fruit that sat on your breakfast plate for years, the one you believed was helping your heart and your waistline, but in truth, it may be fueling the growth of your prostate and deepening your struggles. And that's where we go next, because it's time to expose the breakfast trap that so many men fall into without ever realizing the cost. 2. The worst fruit for your prostate. The breakfast trap. When I bring up the idea that a simple piece of fruit might be harming the prostate, most men look at me with disbelief. After all, we grow up believing fruit is nature's perfect food, loaded with vitamins, low in calories, and always a smarter choice than processed sweets. That belief runs so deep that many of my patients proudly tell me how they start their mornings with a half grapefruit, sliced neatly on the plate, sometimes sprinkled with a little sugar, sometimes eaten plain. They think it's cleansing their system, helping them lose weight, or protecting their heart. And I don't blame them, because for years grapefruit was marketed as one of the healthiest breakfast options you could put on your table. But here's the painful truth. For men over 60, grapefruit is not your friend. In fact, it may be quietly sabotaging your prostate. I remember a patient named Frank, 71 years old, who came to see me exhausted. He was waking up 6 times a night to urinate. He'd stopped traveling with his wife because he couldn't stand the constant interruptions. Frank was disciplined. He walked every morning, ate salads, avoided red meat. He truly believed he was doing everything right. When we reviewed his diet, I noticed he mentioned grapefruit every day for breakfast. His eyes widened when I explained how this very fruit could be one of the hidden drivers of his prostate problems. He shook his head and said, "Doctor, all these years, I thought I was being healthy. You're telling me I was hurting myself?" That moment of shock is one I've seen many times. The science is clear. Grapefruit interferes with the way your liver processes medications. And let's be honest, by the time most of us reach 60, nearly everyone is on at least one prescription, often for blood pressure, cholesterol, or diabetes. Grapefruit blocks an enzyme that helps break down these drugs, which means the medications build up in your system. The excess can create inflammation, stress your organs, and yes, aggravate your prostate. That's why I call it the breakfast trap. What you thought was helping you may be silently working against you, multiplying your discomfort at night and pushing your prostate to grow larger. But it's not just about medications. Grapefruit also contains compounds that can influence hormone metabolism. In men, that often translates to lower testosterone and higher estrogen levels. And that imbalance is like pouring fuel on the fire when it comes to prostate growth. Imagine trying to put out a flame with gasoline. That's exactly what grapefruit can do in the male body after 60. You think you're nourishing yourself, but you're feeding the very condition you want to avoid. I've had men tell me that once they stopped eating grapefruit, the changes were remarkable. Within weeks, the number of nightly bathroom trips decreased. Their sleep improved. Their energy during the day returned. Their wives noticed they were less irritable, more engaged, and more like themselves again. These are real transformations that begin with one small but powerful decision: to step away from the fruit you thought was your ally, but in truth has been your hidden enemy. The part that makes this especially tragic is how ordinary grapefruit feels. It doesn't look like a threat. It doesn't taste dangerous. It sits there in the grocery store, glowing pink or yellow, promising health. Yet in the body of an older man, it can trigger a cascade of problems you never connected back to that morning routine. That is why I tell my patients, and I'm telling you now, grapefruit after 60 is not worth the risk. And this raises the next question. One that I know is burning in your mind right now. How exactly does this fruit, something so ordinary and common, create such a powerful effect on your prostate? To truly understand, we need to look at what I call the double betrayal, the hidden ways grapefruit changes your body's chemistry and sets the stage for prostate growth. That's where we're headed next. 3. How grapefruit fuels prostate growth, the double betrayal. When I explain to men why grapefruit is so harmful after 60, I often describe it as a double betrayal. On the surface, it looks harmless, even beneficial. For decades, magazines and commercials painted it as the perfect breakfast food, but beneath that bright skin and tangy taste, grapefruit hides two distinct dangers. One that affects how your body processes medication, and another that disrupts your hormones in ways that quietly feed the growth of your prostate. And when these two forces combine, they create a perfect storm. The first betrayal comes through the liver. Most men over 60 take medication, often more than one. Blood pressure pills, cholesterol drugs, diabetes medication, these are common, almost universal. The liver has a special system of enzymes that break down those drugs at just the right pace, ensuring your body gets the benefit without overload. Grapefruit blocks that system. It ties up those enzymes so the drugs stay in your body longer and build up to higher concentrations. At first, you might not notice anything unusual, but slowly, those higher levels begin to cause inflammation, fluid retention, and stress throughout the body. And the prostate, already sensitive and prone to enlargement with age, responds by swelling further. Men who think they are carefully managing their health with medication may actually be suffering because grapefruit magnifies the effects in dangerous ways. The second betrayal is hormonal. The prostate is deeply influenced by hormones, particularly testosterone and estrogen. As men age, testosterone levels decline naturally, while estrogen tends to creep higher. Grapefruit contains unique compounds that can interfere with how testosterone is metabolized. That means even less of the hormone your body needs to balance the prostate, and relatively more estrogen, creating conditions that push the gland to grow larger. I've often told my patients, it's like stacking the deck against yourself. With every slice of grapefruit, the balance tips further away from where it should be. And this isn't just about urination. Hormonal shifts also affect energy, muscle strength, mood, and yes, even sexual vitality. I remember a patient named Harold, 68 years old, who prided himself on living clean. He didn't drink alcohol, he exercised daily, and every morning he had grapefruit. Yet he came to me complaining of constant fatigue, loss of libido, and nightly bathroom trips that left him exhausted. When I walked him through the science of grapefruit, he was stunned. We adjusted his diet, removed the grapefruit, and within months his sleep improved, his energy returned, and his prostate symptoms calmed down. He looked at me and said, "Doctor, I had no idea one piece of fruit could cause so much trouble." His story is not unusual. That's why I call it the double betrayal. Grapefruit undermines you from two directions at once. It magnifies your medications while stealing your hormonal balance, leaving your prostate caught in the crossfire. Men who thought they were eating healthy end up paying the price in restless nights, constant urgency, and a gradual decline in their vitality. And here's the hardest part. It happens silently. There's no label on the fruit warning you about drug interactions, no sign at the grocery store telling older men to avoid it. You just assume it's safe, until one day you realize your life has been quietly reshaped by a piece of fruit you thought was helping you. And now that you understand this betrayal, you might be wondering, what is the true cost of ignoring these warnings? Beyond the science, what does it feel like to live with a prostate that won't let you rest, that controls your days and steals your nights? To answer that, we need to talk about the emotional toll, the way this small gland can turn strong men into prisoners of their own bathroom routines. That's the reality I want to show you next. 4. The emotional cost. Living prisoners of the bathroom. When men first come to my office, they usually want to talk about symptoms. They describe weak streams, hesitation, urgency, and the frustration of waking up again and again through the night. But after a few minutes, when I really listen, I realize they aren't just talking about urine flow. They're talking about how it feels to live at the mercy of their prostate, and that feeling is something no test result can capture. It is the quiet humiliation of being a prisoner in your own body. I once spoke with a man named George, 73 years old, who told me he dreaded evenings. While his wife relaxed on the couch, watching a movie, he sat there tense, already planning how many times he would have to excuse himself to go to the bathroom. He said, "Doc, I feel like I can't even be present with her anymore. My mind is always on my bladder." Another man, Michael, shared that before road trips, he mapped out every gas station along the route because he knew he couldn't last more than an hour without stopping. These stories are painful, but they're not rare. They are the reality for millions of men who live chained to their prostate. The emotional toll is heavier than most men admit. It's not only about inconvenience, it's about dignity. Imagine being out to dinner with friends and needing to get up 3 times before dessert is served. Imagine being on a plane, constantly squeezing past passengers to reach the bathroom. Many men begin to withdraw, saying no to social invitations, no to travel, no to the activities that once gave them joy. They shrink their world, not because they want to, but because their prostate leaves them no choice. That shrinking of life can lead to loneliness, frustration, even depression. And then there's the strain on intimacy. I remember a patient, a retired engineer, who told me the most heartbreaking thing. "Doctor, I feel like less of a man." His nights were broken not only by frequent urination, but also by exhaustion and the anxiety that comes with it. He couldn't be fully present with his wife, and the distance between them grew. When a gland the size of a walnut can put a wall between 2 people who love each other, you know the cost is far deeper than medical terms like BPH suggest. These emotional wounds don't show up on lab reports, but they are just as real as any test result. And often, they are heavier to carry than the physical symptoms themselves. Men pride themselves on control, strength, and independence. Losing those to an enlarged prostate feels like losing a part of who they are. That is why I tell my patients, your suffering is not trivial, and it is not something you simply have to live with. There are causes we can address, steps we can take, and hope we can restore. But first, we must recognize the enemy clearly, because if we fail to see what is fueling this loss of freedom, we will remain trapped in the same cycle night after night. And here is where the story turns from emotional pain back to practical action. Because once you know what to remove, the next question becomes, what can you do instead? What foods, what choices, what daily switches can ease the burden and give you back the nights you long for? That's exactly what we'll uncover next. 5. What to do instead. The simple prostate-saving switch. Once men understand that grapefruit is working against them, the next question always comes quickly. "Doctor, if I stop eating it, what should I eat instead?" And that's the part I love sharing, because it's not about taking joy away from food. It's about making a simple switch that brings comfort, health, and confidence back into your life. Too many men over 60 think they need complicated regimens, expensive supplements, or drastic changes. The truth is far simpler. With the right fruits, vegetables, and one daily habit, you can calm your prostate, restore your energy, and even reclaim the nights of peaceful sleep you've been missing. I often tell my patients to think of it as the 3 fruits, 3 veggies, 1 habit plan. It's easy to remember, easy to follow, and powerful in results. The fruits are blueberries, apples, and pomegranate. Blueberries are rich in antioxidants that soothe inflammation and protect delicate tissues, including the prostate. Apples provide fiber and compounds that help regulate blood sugar and digestion, both of which support hormone balance. And pomegranate has been studied for its remarkable ability to improve blood flow and reduce oxidative stress, both critical for prostate and sexual health. When men swap grapefruit for these fruits, they often tell me they feel lighter, calmer, and more in control of their bodies. Then we look at the vegetables: broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. These cruciferous vegetables contain compounds called indoles and sulforaphane that naturally detoxify the body and support hormone balance. More importantly, research shows they may protect the prostate from abnormal growth. I've seen men who simply added a serving of broccoli or Brussels sprouts to their dinner a few times a week notice real improvements in their urinary flow. It's not about perfection. It's about steady, consistent choices that work with your body rather than against it. And finally, the daily habit: movement. It doesn't have to be running marathons or lifting heavy weights. For most men over 60, the simplest and most effective habit is a brisk 30-minute walk every single day. Movement reduces inflammation, improves circulation, and helps regulate hormones. It also lifts mood and eases anxiety, which are often overlooked but deeply connected to prostate symptoms. I've had patients tell me that their daily walk became more than exercise. It became therapy, a way to reconnect with themselves and their spouses, a way to feel alive again. One of my patients, Robert, 66 years old, told me he was skeptical at first. He thought, how can swapping fruit and walking each day really make a difference? But after 2 months of leaving grapefruit behind, eating blueberries and apples, adding broccoli to dinner, and walking with his wife each evening, he came back to my office smiling. He said, "Doctor, I only got up once last night. I feel like a new man." His story isn't rare. I see transformations like this over and over again. This is why I emphasize that you are not powerless. Your prostate doesn't control you. You have choices, and those choices matter. Even small changes in your diet and daily routine can lead to big improvements in your comfort, your sleep, and your confidence. It doesn't take expensive pills or complicated diets. It takes awareness, consistency, and the willingness to replace what harms you with what heals you. And now that you see how simple switches can turn the tide, you might be wondering, is it really possible to find lasting relief and renewed vitality even after 60, even if you've struggled for years? The answer is yes. And in the next part, I'll show you why it's never too late to reclaim your health and your manhood. 6. Hope for men over 60. It's not too late. One of the hardest things I see in my practice is the look in a man's eyes when he believes his best years are already behind him. He sits across from me, weary from countless sleepless nights and drained from years of running back and forth to the bathroom, and he says, "Doctor, I guess this is just how it is now." That quiet surrender, that belief that nothing can change, breaks my heart because I know it isn't true. I've spent over 3 decades working with men just like you, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, it is never too late to reclaim your health, your comfort, and your confidence. I think of a patient named Thomas, who came to see me at 72. He had resigned himself to his situation. For more than a decade, he had lived with constant urgency, interrupted sleep, and the frustration of a body that no longer felt like his own. He told me he stopped traveling with his wife, stopped attending church events, and even turned down invitations from his grandchildren because he couldn't face the embarrassment of being the man who always needed to slip away to the restroom. But Thomas made a decision. He gave up grapefruit, added blueberries and pomegranate to his meals, included broccoli with dinner, and started walking each morning. 3 months later, he returned for a follow-up. His face was brighter, his energy stronger, and he told me he had just gone on his first road trip in years, without worrying about rest stops every hour. He said, "Doctor, I feel like I got part of my life back." That kind of transformation isn't rare. It happens more often than men believe. And it's not just physical changes that matter, it's the restoration of dignity. Men in their 60s and 70s often feel invisible, as though aging strips away the strength and control they once took for granted. But when their symptoms improve, when they finally sleep through the night, when they no longer dread long dinners or car rides, they begin to feel whole again. Their shoulders straighten, their eyes brighten, and their confidence returns. One man told me, "I didn't realize how much my prostate was controlling me until I took control back." Those words stay with me because they capture the truth. Your prostate doesn't have to define the man you are. I want to emphasize that your story does not have to be one of decline. Science has shown us that even after 60, the body has an incredible ability to heal, to adapt, and to grow stronger when given the right support. Small changes lead to measurable improvements: better sleep, stronger energy, improved intimacy with your partner. These are not dreams reserved for younger men. They are possibilities available to you right now, no matter your age. I have seen men in their 80s walk into my office with the energy of men decades younger simply because they made the choice to change what they eat, how they move, and how they care for themselves. The real hope is this: you are not powerless, and you are not too late. Every day is a chance to take one step back toward the life you want to live. Your prostate may be a challenge, but it does not have to be your prison. And yet, even with all this hope, there remains one more critical truth I must share with you. Because while it's inspiring to know that change is possible, you also need to understand the urgency of making that change right now. In the end, it all comes down to one decision: the decision to stop letting this silent enemy control you. That's why in my final advice to you, I'll make the most important plea of all. 7. My final advice, the doctor's plea. If I could sit across from you right now, look you in the eye, and give you one piece of advice that could change your health after 60, it would be this: stop eating grapefruit today. I don't say this lightly. I say it because I've seen the hidden damage it causes, the sleepless nights, the strained relationships, the slow erosion of confidence that it fuels in men who never realized what was happening to them. And I say it because I care deeply about men like you, men who deserve to enjoy their later years with strength, dignity, and vitality, not nights broken by urgency and days haunted by fatigue. I know how hard it can be to believe that something as small as a piece of fruit could hold such power over your life. But after decades of treating patients, I've seen the same pattern repeat itself. A man thinks he's doing the right thing by following old habits, only to find his prostate growing larger and his freedom shrinking smaller. When he finally lets go of the grapefruit and makes the simple switch to healthier options, the transformation can be remarkable. He begins to sleep through the night. His energy lifts. His wife notices he's smiling more, laughing more, living more. And that's when he realizes he's not doomed to decline. He's simply been fighting the wrong battle. I remember a patient named Daniel, 69 years old, who looked at me with tears in his eyes after he finally experienced relief. He said, "Doctor, I wish I had known sooner. I could have spared myself years of misery." His words haunt me because I know there are countless men out there right now, maybe even you, who are still suffering simply because no one told them the truth. That's why I'm pleading with you today. Don't wait until regret teaches you what you could have changed. Don't let your prostate steal more of your comfort and confidence than it already has. You have the power to take control, and it starts with a decision as simple as what you put on your plate. Every day you continue with the wrong choices is another day your prostate grows larger and your freedom grows smaller. But every day you choose differently is a step toward reclaiming your nights, your energy, and your intimacy. That's why I call this my doctor's plea, because I'm not just speaking as a physician, I'm speaking as someone who has listened to the pain, the frustration, and the quiet despair of men who thought they had no options left. I want better for you. I want you to live these years with pride, with health, with joy. So here is my heartfelt advice. Stop the grapefruit, embrace the foods and habits that support you, and believe that change is still possible, because it is. I've seen it, I've guided men through it, and I know it can happen for you too. And now that I've shared this final plea, I want to leave you with one last message, one that ties everything together, because understanding the problem is only half the battle. What matters most is the vision of the life you can still create, and the steps you can begin taking today to make it real. Let's talk about that in our conclusion. Conclusion: taking back your life. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to speak to you not only as a doctor, but as a man who has walked alongside thousands of patients facing the same struggles you may be living with right now. We began by shining a light on why the prostate matters so much more after 60, how it quietly robs men of their nights and their peace of mind. We uncovered the surprising truth about grapefruit, the so-called healthy fruit that in reality has been fueling the very growth of your prostate, a breakfast trap that has left countless men suffering without ever realizing the cause. We explored the double betrayal, how grapefruit magnifies your medications while upsetting your hormones, leaving your body caught in a battle you didn't even know you were fighting. And we looked at the deep emotional cost, the way constant urgency and broken sleep can shrink not just your bladder, but your entire life, pulling you away from family, friends, and even from yourself. But I also showed you the way forward, by making one simple switch, by choosing fruits and vegetables that support your body rather than betray it. By embracing a daily habit of movement, you can take the first real steps toward reclaiming your nights, your dignity, and your vitality. I've shared stories of men who made these choices, men in their 60s and 70s who once believed it was too late, but who now live with renewed strength and confidence. Their lives remind us all that hope is not lost and that healing can happen at any age. My final plea to you was simple. Stop the grapefruit today. Do not let one fruit dictate the quality of your life any longer. Replace it with foods that nurture you and watch how your body begins to respond. Every change you make, no matter how small, is a declaration that you refuse to surrender to decline. Gentlemen, you deserve more than restless nights and quiet frustration. You deserve peace, strength, intimacy, and the joy of living fully at every age. Your prostate does not define you, your choices do. And today, you have the chance to choose differently. So take this knowledge, take this warning, and take this hope. Because it is never too late to take back your life.